My hand is coming down. My hand is down. Ready for the flag.
Two really powerful crews, each with an intention to make it through to Sunday. But already we see the power of that Leander crew, the determination from the stroke, leading them out there. Really impressive start from that Leander crew.
Yeah.
Gutsy.
Completely agree. Yeah, gutsy is a great word for it, isn't it, Kath? And you know, this is a selected crew. That means the stewards reckon that they're pretty good form, and well, they haven't had much racing experience in this season, but they're out to a good, strong start. Got to say though, Tyne have been a good surprise here. Not a selected crew, but they beat Canterbury yesterday by three-quarters of a length, and that's a pretty good surprise in this event. So here we are with Leander. How do you think they're looking?
As with each race, they are getting more confident about coming down this track, and the power that we see here being applied right from the start is really impressive. I think Katie King-Smith has been such a strong leader of her crew on the water. Wonderful, sort of clear rhythm that she sets, full length there, helping her crew to get good length coming out the island as they are already trying to stretch away from Tyne.
Yeah, well said. Here's the Tyne crew, struggling with the superior power. Really quite tight, nice together, but they're kind of having to lean back. There's a little bit of a headwind coming down the course still today, and that does make it a bit trickier between strokes. You've got more drag on the boat. That means you need a bit more power and a bit more what we call send at the finish, where the oar comes out just to keep it moving on.
It is in a headwind. You've got to get that sort of combination of making sure you're not rushing by. You need to be racy, but you've got to be punchy. You want to finish those strokes off into the headwinds. You've got to get that balance in the rhythm.
Yeah, and you mentioned Katie King-Smith. Look in the stroke seat there of the Leander crew. Great sort of compression in the legs, really long, strong strokes, which is what you want. In the stroke seat, you need somebody who sets the pattern for the rest of the crew. So long and rhythmical, and she does exactly that. She's got 5 Henley appearances previously, so she knows this really well. And of course, it's the home water of the Leander Club.
That's right, and I think this crew have each race become really more and more consistent down the course. They've raced in lots of different combinations. They're part of that fearsome development squad. There are women in this Leander crew who have aspirations to move to join the Olympic team at some point at Caversham, so they are on a mission, and part of that pathway for them is to show what they can do here at Henley.
And they're just past the barrier. You can see the sign there and the yellow flag that dropped a couple of seconds ago. That is 637 metres. Don't worry, pick that number down this Henley course. And so by now the crews need to be in their raced rhythm. And here we see the Tyne crew stroked by Amy Baumann. It's a stroke woman called Baumann, continuing to try to push the crew along. They've got to throw everything against the much more powerful, potentially Leander crew, to see what they can do. But she's also doing a great job in the stroke seat with that length and rhythm and pattern that her crew need to follow.
Great. You could see her there saying a couple of things to the cocks. The stroke often has a sort of ongoing, albeit very short, communications happening down the course. She'll be judging, thinking, come on, we've got to push. Maybe we need to bring forward our race plan so that we put the pushes in earlier. Because they're down on Leander, you've got to start attacking. You need to lift the crew. They're a little bit lower, I think, on the rate. They need to keep it lively. And actually, as you go into the headwind, you don't want it to get heavy. And so I think it's a bit of communication there, just about, you know, what the right call is for the crew here. That combination of making sure they're together and staying motivated when they're down.
Brilliant insight. I think that communication in rowing is actually really, really important. A lot of it happens through body language and feel between the athletes in the boat, but the cox has to consider with the stroke how are they going to adapt. You have a plan goes out the window the moment you make contact with the opposition, right? And that's what they'll be needing to do in the Tyne boat. Meanwhile, equally in Leander, they'll be considering, well, how much further down the track do we want to be? Flat out. Obviously now they've started to take the rate down and be more controlled, thinking about energy conservation, but also making sure they row really technically well, and that communication will be going on, as you said.
Almost in code, isn't it? That's one of the things when you're developing the rowing technique. You can see great technique coming from this Leander crew here. Really long and powerful, really good. You can see the way their hands are moving away from the finish. The timing is looking really good. Of course, they're confident now they're ahead of the other crew. But at the same time as honing technique, you're honing communication. You're honing what the words mean, what the calls of the cocks mean, so that we all respond in the same way. And every race you do, those calls get tighter. And when you're reviewing in between each round, you're thinking, right, that move didn't quite work. What is it we're all doing when the cocks calls for length or for a stroke of finish? So all the time you're trying to get the language of the crew to develop.
Yeah, and you often in a crew, don't you, you alight on some particular words that mean something to you. So it can be quite a short phrase, but it's something that means a particular feeling in the boat or a particular way of applying the power, and that can really help.
Yeah, and I think that's absolutely right. You have that kind of crew language, and there we saw a really strong crew call again coming from the stroke of the Tyne crew. Amy Bauman is wanting her crew to respond. They know for them it's a final. They're in a really tough position here. They have to have a go still, and they're looking really strong, but it's just nothing compared to the power that we see of this Leander crew.
Yeah, and nice technical rowing there. For a crew that hasn't had much time together, you know, it's quite hard to drill everything in you want. So the blades need to move together, you need to slide forward together, you need to catch the water at the start of the stroke in a similar way. So we'd be wanting to bed that in as they come down the track here. Every stroke is an opportunity to bed that pattern of rowing into the crew.
Absolutely, and for them, each race is a chance to try stuff out as well, to experiment a little bit. Does this help? Does this help? And they'll be debriefing, communicating that in between. But look at that shot there, the real rhythm there. As they dropped the rate, they're still rowing powerful strokes, but they're giving themselves more recovery time. They're trying to see if they can move the boat as fast. So there's still a lot of power on the strokes, but in between they've got a little bit more space now, time to breathe, because they're so far ahead.
So Leander rowing into the sunshine of Henley Regatta semi-finals day here in the new event, the Wargrave Challenge Cup, the club women's eights event, and following them down the track from Tyne A.R.C. Strong crew, got through 2 rounds already today, beat Henley Rowing Club on Thursday, beat a selected Cantabrigian crew in a close and really well-fought race yesterday, only 3/4 of a length in it yesterday, and today they come up against the mighty Leander, super successful at this regatta, over 200 years old as a club, and they've really built out their women's programs and their junior programs over recent years, super successful.
It's a really fearsome group. They've got training there, we can see that. But I think the Tyne crew, you know, they're a lovely mixture of, we've got a teacher in the 6th seat, Rachel Lee. We've got Imogen Lee, her sister presumably in the 7th seat, who's going to join the army in September. We've got all sorts of, some have only been rowing a first for a few years. Others have been rowing Imogen Lee since the age of 8. I didn't even know you could row at the age of 8.
Well, there's commitment for you. Fantastic to see as we look down from the finish line to see these 2 crews coming past the enclosures. Great to see so many people out here on semi-finals day in this unique August edition of Henley. Leander, their development crew, and they have had a great row, a good chance to open up the pipes at the beginning of the race, and then to just practice, as we said, Kath, that technique that they're looking for. Lovely, long, strong strokes. Strong send on the finish, just pushing the boat along, and in the last few strokes they'll enjoy this feeling, looking down the track, looking at the sunshine and looking at the back of the Tyne crew. So that's Leander crossing the line first ahead of Tyne A.R.C. in this Wargrave Club 8s event for women.
Right,